Hello, hello. Good evening, everyone. So, welcome po to the seventh session of the Agriculturist Licensure Exam peer review under the Upstep Review Caravan 2026. So, second to the last session na po ito for URC's AGLE peer review. Napakabilis ng panahon. And as always, it is a pleasure to have you all here this evening sa ating Google Meet at sa ating Facebook live stream. So before we begin, we would like to connect with everyone. Patype po sa ating chat box, AGLE 2026 if you're taking the exam this year, or future registered agriculturist if you are preparing ahead. Again, AGLE 2026 po if magte-take na kayo this year, or future registered agriculturist if magte-take kayo sa next cycle. Ayan, so mukhang mga magte-take this year. So, good luck po sa ating lahat and hopefully ay ready nang matuto for tonight's session. Before we begin, we would like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to our co-presenters and partner organizations. Thank you to Bulacan Agricultural State College, College of Agriculture Student Council, and the UP Agricultural Society for making this caravan possible. And before we proceed, don't forget to register to our free review sessions to stay updated. So last session na po tomorrow, so hopefully ay makita ulit namin kayo bukas. You may also enroll in our review programs for a more comprehensive and guided preparation. We offer face-to-face, online, and self-paced review programs as you can see flashed on your screens. Ayan. So for today's session, we will be learning about agricultural extension. So as future registered agriculturists, malaking tulong ito in understanding kung ano ba ang role ng extension in bridging the gap between research and practice. Ayan, kaya hopefully ay makinig po tayong lahat for tonight's lecture. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our lecturer for tonight. She graduated summa cum laude from UPLB with a degree in Bachelor of Science in Agriculture. She is a co-founder and business operations lead of eConsulta Medical Clinic and a DOST SEI 2020 Merit Scholarship grantee. So without further ado, let's all welcome and give a virtual round of applause to the fourth place top notcher of AGLET 2024, Miss Paula Hamir. Hello po, good evening po.
Hello po yan. Good evening to everyone. So, share screen lang ako. So, wala bang share screen ako? I apologize na agad if pangit yung boses ko, guys, kasi medyo pause tayo for today. Ayan. So, without further ado, I think we can start naman na. Yun na pala. Mahirap pala makikita ng chats here. That pala. Join ko yung phone. Anyway, okay, so mamaya. So this is Upstep Review Center Free Agri Review, Agricultural Extension and Communication. With me, I'm Paula Hamir once again. And for the flow and row, so we're gonna have 20 TOS-based questions. So questions based from the table of specifications. And bigyan tayo ng 30 seconds each. And then afterwards, bigyan tayo yung answer, tapos rationale, and some lecture. So for smooth flow, so please maintain at mute and hopefully mag-participate actively yung nandito sa ating Gmeet and kahit yung nasa FB Live natin. So be kind, of course. So kapag mayroon lang kayong siguro icebreaker, ano bang pinagkakaabalahan natin right before this review session? Kakakain na ba natin ng dinner? O nag-dinner na kayo? Ano bang ulam niyo? Etc. So, or kakagaling sa laro or kakaaral. Grabe ang sipag ng ating reviewers. Anyway, ayun. So, yeah, para matapos din tayo on time. Last year kasi parang late kami natapos. So, let's go. For question number 1, which of the following acts laid the foundation for establishing land-grant colleges and universities in the United States? So A, Smith-Lever Act of 1914, or B, Morrill Act of 1862, C, Hatch Act of 1887, and D, Second Morrill Act of 1890. Ayan. So for this one po, ang answer is Moral Act of 1862. So Moral Act 1862 yung nag-establish ng ating land grant colleges and universities. So for other contexts, itong tatlong laws and policies na to ay very monumental and parang holy trinity kumbaga during AgEx sa Europe and US. So most likely nilalabas talagang isang tanong regarding this. Kaya let's dive deeper on it. So first, yung Moral Act of 1862. As mentioned, kaya to education kasi yun yung nag-establish ng ating land grant universities. So bakit siya land grant universities? Basically, yung US kasi that time, hindi, hanggang ngayon naman, sobrang dami nilang lupa, right? And pinamigay yung lupang yun sa iba't ibang states. Tapos kung magkano yung proceeds nila na nakuha from those lands na pinamigay, yun yung ginamit pang establish ng ating land grant universities para mas spread yung information, especially about agriculture from the central locations to more rural areas. And then Hatch Act naman, so it's more of, it summarizes yung research kasi itong act na to ay nag-provide ng more funding para mas magkaroon ng experimental stations. So Hatch Act yun. And then second Moral Act, ito ay nag-extend ng ating first Moral Act of 1862 to more black public colleges. So ang pinaka-rational nito is meron kasing discrimination between black and white during this time pa lang. Kaya parang pinapili if it's either pagbibuild sila ng bagong school or merong hiwalay para masama talaga sa white yung mga black that time. And during this time, nagkaroon nga na lang, parang mas naging option na mas mag-build ng more public black colleges. Then the fourth one is the Smith-Lever Act, so extension. Kasi ito, in-institutionalize niya yung Cooperative Extension Service. Kumbaga, ito kasi, pinapakita yung cooperation between the federal government ng US, kung ano yung US Department of Agriculture, USDA, pati yung state and yung mga land grant universities and pati yung mga county governments na pinapadating from the state papunta sa ating local farms, yung natututunan from the experimental stations. So parang pinagsama-sama niya, in-integrate niya rin yung iba't ibang land grant universities and yung experiment stations na nabanggit sa ibang laws. So that's for these four laws. For question number 2, so which of the following institutions was created in 1952 to unify the agricultural extension services in the Philippines and under which law? So is it A, Agricultural Productivity Commission ng RA 680, or yung RA 8844 ba yung APC, C, yung BAEX na tinatawag, Bureau of Agricultural Extension, RA 680, or D, BAEX na RA 3844. So dapat alam natin yung mismong institution and anong law yung nag-deal with it. Okay. So the answer for this is C, BAEX, so RA 680. Ito yung pinaka, if hindi pinaka, ito yung one of the most na madugong topics with regards to AgEx and yung pinaka-worry ng mga tao, which history, pati yung laws, pati yung president. So in the next questions, try nating mag-provide ng short summaries o yung mga key information that would help you in your review. So for the BAEX one, ito, ang Bureau of Agricultural Extension ay yung Agricultural Training Institute now, which is ATI. So naging ATI siya effectively because of the Executive Order 116 ni Cory Aquino. Pero yung BAEX is ginawa under RA 680 panahon ni Quirino. So it's a product of the Daniel W. Bell Report, or Bell Report lang na kung tawagin. Baka lang kasi may lumabas sa exam na kung sino man si Bell. So usually tinatanong yan hanggang initial. Parang baka merong option na Daniel S. Bell, Daniel W. Bell, Daniel Y. Bell. So depende na yun sa examiner. Pero kaya Daniel W. Bell Report, nakita kasi dun sa report na kinakailangan or very hiwalay yung services na pinaprovide sa agriculture ng iba't ibang departments, right, nung time na yun. So kinakailangan i-consolidate or i-unify into as some sort of bureau or kung ano mang institution? And the answer was BAEX during that time. Then the APC is the Agricultural Productivity Commission. So ang history nito, from BAEX, ginawa siyang APC under RA 3844 during Macapagal era. And binalik naman siya sa BAEX ni Marcos by PD1. So for land reform program, yung APC, technically ito naman yung famously na yung giving land to the landless, right? So technically yung changes dyan from bureau to iba't ibang commissions, meron niyang iba't ibang political motivations and reasons. So kapag medyo mahaba lang siya i-discuss ngayon, pero deep dive naman yan further sa ating self-paced or yung mga online sessions natin with Upstep. Pero yun, may iba't iba siyang political motivations and meron ding iba't ibang reasons kung ano meron, kung anong focus ng bureaus and commissions. Pero ayan yun siya. So BAEX is ATI and then naging BAEX APC, tapos BAEX ulit. ATI. And ito pala yung mas in-depth ng DA. So yung DA ay nanggaling sa Department of Agriculture and Natural Resources. So nung una, magkasama yung agriculture saka yung DENR, parang ganun kasi Department of Environment and Natural Resources. 1917. Tapos naging Department of Agriculture and Commerce kasi kinalasify nila na sobrang halaga ng trading sa agriculture industry. And then binalik ulit sa DANR. Tapos may mga years dyan, ikaw ko kung lalabas yan. So feeling ko naman hindi, pero nilagay ko na lang din. Baka gusto nyo din. Sobrang dami yung time, ma-memorize nyo naman lahat. And then, hiniwala yung DANR, DA na lang, tapos plus DNR. So, hindi pa siya DENR noong 1974. Under naman ng departments, meron tayong bureaus. So, hiniwalay ko pala yung hierarchy dito para mas malinaw sa inyo. Kasi sobrang daming ganito sa module, saka dun sa history. So, para malinaw, usually, department siya, and then under ng departments yung bureaus. Tapos under ng bureaus, or mas mababa pa in hierarchy yung ating mga divisions. So itong BA, Bureau of Agriculture siya, ito yung pinakauna, bureau pa lang, tapos bago naging department. And then hiniwalay siya sa kilala ngayon, BPI at BAI noong 1930. Madalas din lumabas to kung kailan naging BPI at BAI, yung BA. So Bureau of Plant Industry, saka Bureau of Animal Industry, na hanggang ngayon nandyan pa din. And then meron tayong Demonstration and Extension Division noong 1910 na under siya ng BA lang that time. Kasi wala pa naman BAI at BPI. Tapos, nagkaroon ng Agriculture Extension Service or Division noong 1923 na nilagay nila under BPI kasi agriculture daw ay parang mas related to plants. So, kaya under plant industry. Tapos, naging Agriculture Division noong 1932. Okay, so that's for DA. And then ito isang highlight institution lang about rice and corn, especially staple crop siya ng Philippines. So, ito yung Rice and Corn Coordinating Council. Rice and Corn Commission. Tapos, naging Rice and Corn Authority. And then, naging Rice and Corn Production Coordinating Council. So, ito is during Marcos era. And ito talagang nagkaroon ng significant power yung institution o yung council na to para mag-lead ng rice and corn production. Ayun. So, ito yung mga mahalaga during those times for the Philippines. And then, yung isa rin share ko lagi, so mnemonic for the presidents, yung pagkakasunod-sunod nila kasi maybe that can also provide a guide or an answer kung sino bang presidente to or saan siya under. Or pwede rin kasi, di ba, in order naman nare-release yung ating mga laws. So, baka pwede rin maging guide na if may alam kayong law, tapos from this, baka by this time, eto na yung president that time. So halimbawa, 10,000 plus si Noynoy, actually parang RA 10,000 plus, halos puro Noynoy na, etc. So that's a tip. So all Queen's lover rice quality that my great mother made curry rice every gallon night Dubai. So yung mga naka-red here is yun lang yung mga naka-first name basis, tapos yung green ay surname. So yun lang naman siya. So history tips, of course, kahit sobrang dreading na mag-aral ng history, I know, kapag may oras tayo, try natin intindihin yung storya pa din and yung context para hindi lang tayo nagme-memorize kasi usually pag memorize tas nag-aral ka ngayon, 'di ba? And November pa yung board exam. Makakalimutan mo na yun highly likely by that time. So pero pag if naiintindihan mo yung context and kung anong nangyari during that time. And actually interesting siya no kasi technically history leads us to what's happening right now. Parang 'di ba? Produkto tayo ng history natin. So maganda lang din siyang aralin and pagtuunan ng pansin. Pero singit ko na lang din yung fourth year na kapag limited lang yung time mo for review kasi syempre iba-iba naman tayo ng circumstance sa buhay. So kung wari, working din tayo, so syempre mas limited tayo mag-review. Huwag na tayo masyado mag-allot ng too much time here or talaga alamin na natin yung mga key questions or mga practice exams kasi ilang points lang to compared with the 100 questions ng AgX. So baka pag mas inuna natin yung ibang topics, mas magiging sure na points. And familiarize with each president. So, pwede nang gamitin nila itong mnemonic kung ano bang mga key laws and events during these different leaders. Okay. So, kaya kay Gloria yung Carper, mga ganun. Kay Ramos yung AFMA. Tapos, kay Magsaysay, siya yung nagsimula ng rice and corn efforts. Kay Garcia yung Filipino First, etc. Kay Cory yung Carl, yung nagpo-provide nga ng land. Kay Marcos, 'di ba, madami masagana, etc. So, yun. So that's for history. Since ayun nga, kailangan tatry nating magkuha ng iba't ibang topics from AgX lahat. Okay? So if may questions kayo, please feel free to leave lang in the comments. Di ko lang nakikita ngayon ng FB, pero I think mas marami naman sa Gmeet. So, ayun. So, sabi na lang kayo. So, question number 3, which statement best describes the significance of the Local Government Code of 1991 or RA 7160 to the agricultural extension in the Philippines? So, A, sinentralize daw niya agricultural research and extension functions under DA. B, nag-devolve siya ng agricultural and fishery extension services to LGUs. C, inabolish niya yung BAEX and replace niya with ATI. Or D, nilimit niya yung rules ng LGU to agricultural credit and farm-to-market road construction. Ayan, so, sana sumagot po tayo. Ayan, so for this, alam ba, wala talaga masyadong sumasagot. Nandyan ba kayo, guys? Nandyan ba ang ating 40 plus people? Wala namang mali kung magkakabali. At least mag-focus kung saan ka mag-aral, di ba? Pero maaga pa, sa totoo. Or joke, BI pala ako, bad influence. So ang answer is B. It devolved agricultural and fishery extension services to LGUs, ang ating RA 7160. So ano bang rationale nitong batas na ito? So basically, before magkaroon ng itong RA 7160, ang extension ay centralized under national government. So sila lang nagpo-provide ng direction, sila lang din sa funding, pati sa resources. So anong nangyari, since national government nakadepende halos lahat ng movement, merong inefficiency saka mas mabagal. And also, weak yung local participation kasi kumbaga top-down yun. Parang hindi naman perket from national, alam nila lahat ng specific na nangyayari between different communities. Kasi tayo naman, iba't iba naman tayo ng nararanasan at mga pangangailangan sa iba't ibang lugar. Right? So dahil sa RA 7160, na-decentralize sa LGUs, so mas naging closer to the people. Imbes na DA lagi yung direction at budget, meron nang provide sa LGU. Okay. And naging mandatory yung agriculture sa provincial government. So isa sa mga issue nito is bakit optional lang daw sa municipalities. Kaya maraming municipalities pa rin ngayon ay walang agriculture. And iba-iba nga yung capacity ng LGU. So kahit bigyan mo sila ng iba't ibang budget or iba't ibang resources. So meron pa ring mas may mataas na capacity na LGU versus others. So baka merong mas mapag-iwanan, kumbaga. So ito rin yung mga key policies and key mandates na related to AgX na syempre meron pang more na madidiscuss if ever dun sa full version. Pero yun, ito yung mga halos lumalabas lagi. So Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, that's RA 6657. So kumbaga if may cheat sheet ka, tapos nagka-cram ka na lang bago mag-exam, bago ka umakit sa exam venue. So pwedeng tingnan mo na lang to ng maigi, di ba? Tapos ito ka na magbasa. Ayun. So yung Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law, that's RA 6657. And ito nga yung providing land to the landless. So nagdi-distribute ng lupa para ang motivation nito kasi daw, kapag pagmamay-ari mo yung lupang sinasaka mo, mas motivated ka to improve it and to further, baga mas maging successful yon compared if employee ka lang or worker ka sa lupang yun. Saka sobrang dami nga kasing lupa na kukunti lang ang may-ari sa Pinas. Okay, so that's Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Law. And then, in-extend yon ng CARPER, so RA 9700. So dito, mas ginawang madali yung process with regards to this providing lands. And so an extension ng 5 years. Plus, dinagdagan din ng budget. For the AFMA naman, ito kasing time na to, 8435, or 8435 is parang globalization era, 1997 ata ito. So under Ramos period. Kaya very buzzword ang modernization. And dito, technically, yung iba't ibang processes na parang mas magkaroon nga ng machine or mas kumuha ng information outside Philippines. So, dyan po nga pasok sa AFMA. Then, Philippine Fisheries Code. So, ito, yung mga iba't ibang laws naman. Usually, yung mga key laws ay, ang motivation naman din is wala pang regulation or wala pang mga rules, standards, wala pang guidelines regarding a one matter or one industry. So, halimbawa with Philippine Fisheries Code, hindi regulated yung fishing, given din na merong declining fish resources. So, yun yung motivation for Philippine Fisheries Code. Inamend naman siya ng RA 10654 kasi marami pa ring illegal fishing na nangyari. So, IUU, illegal, unregulated, and unreported fishing. So, with RA 10654, mas ginawa nilang strict and mas pinagdagan nila yung fines kapag sa mga illegal fishing. For Organic Agriculture Act, meron daw degrading environmental resources, so makakatulong yung organic agriculture, and since wala pang regulation sa organic agriculture, so kaya ginawa nila yung RA 10068. Ito very famous yan actually. I think natatanong ato to every year. Tapos in-mention ng RA 11511 sa amendment ng OA Act, in-introduce yung ating participatory guarantee systems kung saan mas ginawang accessible yung certification of organic agriculture through the participatory guarantee systems. Next naman, ang ating Agricultural and Fisheries Mechanization Law. So RA 10601, basically nag-revolve to in mechanizing or pag-provide ng more machines, more machineries, especially for post-harvest kasi maraming nagiging losses sa post-harvest. And para mas maging efficient. Yun yung rationale hanggang ngayon naman, na mas mag-mechanize para mas maging efficient sa time yung labor, etc. So, nag-provide ng mga training, budget support to provide more machinery sa ating stakeholders. And then, Rice Tarification Law, so RTL, RA 11203, so very famous also, nag-introduce ng pagtanggal. Technically, tinanggal niya yung quantitative restrictions. So, ano ibig sabihin nun? Parang tinanggal niya na limited ka lang into amount ng pag-i-import ng rice sa Pilipinas. So, imbes na limited ka in quantity or meron ka lang max quantity na pwedeng ma-import, dinagdagan na lang yung taripa or yung tariff na dinadagdag kada nagpapasok ka ng rice. And nilagay yung tariff na nakukuha sa law na to sa RCEF or Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund. Then inamend siya ng RA 12078, ninagdagan yung budget per year sa RCEF, yung Rice Competitive Enhancement Fund, na basically gagamitin sana to support and provide more resources sa ating rice farmers. So ginawa siyang from 10 to 30 billion per year. And then lastly, ito medyo recent, yung ating Philippine Agriculturist Act, RA 12215, kasi dati PRC resolution pa lang ang motivation for the profession of agriculture. So ngayon, meron na rin tayong law for it, and mas required na yung license before you get a position. Pero right now, di ba, parang hindi pa to in full implementation. Kasi yung concerns nga na paano naman yung mga ibang allied fields na hindi naman perket agriculture or about, I mean, given na sobrang broad ng agriculture, hindi lahat, puro agriculturist yung nag-deal. So pwedeng bio siya, ganyan, etc. So dito din, from Leia, dati natawag, ginawang ale, ngayon agle. Bay, paagle na ng paagle yung tawag. Agle. Tapos, imbis na LAGR, so ngayon RAGR na yung mas formal. So, registered agriculturist. So, hopefully, lahat din na nandito ay maging registered agriculturist, right? So, ngayon, mga agriculturist pa lang tayo. Oh, agriculturist na kayo. Ano ba? Hindi pa lang tayo registered. Okay. So, hopefully, maging registered tayong lahat. Kasi kung hindi, ganun talaga. Okay lang yun. Hindi pala okay. Ano ba yan? Napakasabog ko ngayon. Anyway, okay. So, yun yung mga key local policies and legal mandates. So, mahalaga din. Actually, yun nga sasabi ko kapag talaga, and one of my regrets din is nung nag-cram ako mag-aral for boards. Kasi mas, ewan ko, parang masaya din sa akin mag-aral in general. Pero kapag nagka-cram ka, syempre, di ba, hindi mo na na-enjoy kasi hassle na. So, kung meron kayong time ngayon and meron tayong privilege to study more or study with more time, maganda rin talagang i-deep dive lahat ng mga to. Para lang kahit for learning, ma-relearn natin yung mga laws, at least mas maging well-versed tayo, pati yung history and yung other concepts. Not only for AgX, pero for other subjects din. Okay, so next is approaches to AgX. Question 4. An extension worker notices that farmers in her municipality have access to improved crop varieties, fertilizers, and new planting techniques. Yet, most of them continue using outdated practices. So, which extension approach best fits this situation? So, A, general agricultural extension approach, participatory agricultural extension approach, or project approach, or farming systems development approach. Thank you so much sa'yo, Madam Economist, for answering. Okay. Hoy, sumagot kayo. Nag-hoy. Pero gets ko kayo. Kasi nung mga ganito din kaaga during this time, parang nakakahiya din talaga magsagot, tapos puro mali. Pero normal naman puro mali, di ba? Kasi maaga pa naman tapos hindi ka naman machine na maaalala mo lahat ng lesson before, di ba? Pero ang dami kong sat-sat, pero on time pa naman tayo. A, general agricultural extension approach yung tamang sagot. Okay. So ano ba yung 8 main approaches natin? So general, commodity specialized, training and visit, participatory, project, farming systems development, cost sharing, and educational institution. So first, general. Kapag government based or government motivated yung extension service or yung activity, most likely that's for a general approach. Then, if nagpo-focus sa one commodity, like halimbawa, gusto mag-increase ng corn, national corn production, then merong commodity specialized approach na tinatawag. So, may iba't iba kasi yung characteristics. So, halimbawa, pag commodity specialized, and focus kayo sa corn, kukuha ka talaga ng corn expert. Parang ganun. Third, training and visit. So, dito naman, nagkaroon ng scheduled visits sa farms ng ating mga knowledge experts or subject experts, subject matter experts, or subject matter specialists. Tapos, participatory, if yung approach ng extension mo ay, kumbaga, kung paano kayo gagalaw, anong direction, is fina-finalize mo with the farmers kasi nga participatory. Right? Then project, so merong external funding, saka merong time lang. So parang this is a project, extension project, and good lang siya for 10 years. Tapos yung funding is from DOST, mga ganung bagay. And then farming systems development, merong integrated and holistic. Yun yung parang common buzzword here. Pero basically sinasabi dito yung parang mas concepts of circular farming or yung paggamit or maximize ng resources sa pag-consider ng iba't ibang aspeto na hindi lang kumbaga economic or profit, kino-consider mo rin yung social environment, yung technological environment, yung political environment, etc. etc. Cost sharing, nakikishare yung beneficiaries o yung part ng project, yung farmer stakeholders halimbawa, sa kailangan for the project. So halimbawa, nagpo-provide sila ng machines. So makikishare ng konting cost yung farmers para mas meron silang accountability dun sa project kasi hindi lang siya libre. And educational institution, basically nagpo-provide ng extension ay mainly yung ating mga universities or yung other educational institutions. Yeah. Kuwari mga research institutions, pwede rin. So, yung mga naka-underline, kaya naka-underline kasi ito, medyo parang kita mo na sa tanong na project binanggit or nag-share ng course or institution na educational yung nagsabi. So, matik, mas yun yung preferably, hindi pala yun yung correct na sagot. Okay. Okay, so that's for the approaches in GIS. So next, extension methods and techniques. An agricultural extension program for rice farmers in a province uses radio, broadcast, and posters to disseminate information. However, evaluation reveals minimal lang yung adoption due to varying pest conditions across barangays. So what is the most probable cause of ineffectiveness? So A, is it the farmer's lack of access to media channels? B, the cost of the medium was too high? C, extension agents lack facilitation skills? Or D, messages were not tailored to local specific conditions? So sa mga gantong tanong, let's try to maximize yung information na binibigay dun sa question. Hindi tayo mag-assume. Okay? Thank you so much at dumami na yung sagot. Hindi na nag-iisa si economist. Yes, sagot lang kayo. Hindi ko naman kayo maalala kung mali kayo. Nakakaloka. Okay. So, for the answer is D, messages were not tailored to local specific conditions. Basically, yung pinaka naging problem daw kasi about ineffectiveness dahil sinabi ng evaluation ng project ay merong iba't ibang pest conditions across the barangay. So, baka sa isang barangay, iba yung peste na pinaka-problema nila. Tapos sa kabila, iba rin. So, hindi naging tailored yung messages sa kondisyon mismo sa barangay na yun. Kasi, yung radio broadcast natin and posters, basically, di ba, pag pinapost mo yan, as one lang yan. So, kung wari kayo ngayon, medyo mas tong form of extension, pare-pares kayo nang nakikita sa screen, kahit iba't iba kayo ng, kuwari, iba't iba kayo ng weaknesses pa or strengths sa extension. So, wala kayong choice kasi ito yung tanong natin. Right? Parang ganun. So, kaya mas, baga hindi local specific sa inyo. Pero if mag-one-on-one tutorial tayo, halimbawa, mas mag-focus tayo sa weaknesses natin na subjects or na topics. Right? Pero since mas tayo ngayon, mas mediacom-ish or group ba to, in a sense, yun, wala kayong choice kundi pagtiis sa questions ko. Okay, so extension methods and technique, merong 3 kinds. Merong individual, so isahan, one-on-one. Group, or one-to-many, and mass, ayan, so sobrang dami, like thousands, ganyan. So, medyo mass siya kasi may record, may FB Live. So, kung ano, napakadaming audience ng Upstep, kahit 1,000 yung manood, pwede. Right? So, parang group tayo ngayon here sa Gmeet. So, merong pros and cons yan. So, halimbawa for individual, personalize. And mas nabibuild yung trust kasi mas, so, din-discuss ko yung characteristics na pros and cons kasi one way or another, papasok to sa questions regarding this topic. So, mas may build yung trust pag individual kasi one-on-one kayo, right? So, mas na-establish yung rapport nyo with one another. Tapos, mas context-specific na kasi mag-uusap tayo kung anong kailangan mo talaga. Parang ganun. Pero mas time-consuming siya, saka costly per farmer kasi nga isa-isa. So, group naman is nag-learn ka with others. So, minsan, mas motivating yun. Kasi, kunwari, nakakahiya or nakakakaba pag mag-isa lang. Baka ganun. So, at least pag with others, mas confident kang sumagot, etc. And merong collective action. So, halimbawa, pare-pares kayo ng sagot. Ang saya, di ba? Kahit mali or kahit tama. Ang ganun. Tapos, mas efficient kasi hindi nga one-to-one. So, pag group, ang cons niyan ay pwede mag-promote ng bias kasi nga, kung wari merong mag-dominate na tao sa isang group discussion, so nire-require yan ng facilitation na dapat nilang maiiwan, hindi na-dominate ng isa yung discussion, hindi magulo, etc. So that enters in the facilitation skills. So mass naman is wide reach, cost efficient kasi syempre mas mura kapag mas sa isang effort mo, sobrang dami na agad ma-reach. So mabilis siya and usually ginagamit yung mass methods natin for awareness na uy, may gantong technology, uy, may gantong pamigay, may gantong ayuda. So mabilis lang. Kaso it's one way and not locally specific. Kasi nga mas. So same from the question. So ano bang difference ng approach sa method sa technique? Basically, para siyang mas pa-specify ng pa-specify. Pag approach, ito yung overall guiding principles mo sa extension. Pag method, yung systematic procedure. So halimbawa yung approach kanina, general extension approach. Tapos yung method mo ay pwede ring through meetings kapag mas malapit na or radio programs na kasi mas kapag general, government motivated eh. And then yung mismong technique mo sa radio programs mo ay meron kang radio jingles. So yun yung most specific particular tool or skill to carry out the method. So approach, then bababa to method to technique. Okay. So yun. Then next naman natin is practice of agricultural extension. When a drought hits, an agricultural extension worker encourages farmers to use drought-tolerant crops and to coordinate with the DA for irrigation scheduling. At the same time, she helps them form a local farmers group to manage water use. This demonstrates which combination of agricultural extension worker functions. So is it A, technical advisor and community organizer, or B, researcher and policymaker, C, supervisor, regulator, D, farm manager and financial. So far, pag may questions kayo, meron ba? Ano? Wala naman. Kain po tayo nun. Yes, ano nakakain na kayo guys? Kasi 7:30 na. Kung hindi, bakit? Di ko naman hawak yung kawain. Bakit ang hirap ng AgX? Also, sinasabi nga ng mga tao, madali ito eh. Gawin niyo yun. Okay. Tapos na pala. So, A, technical advisor and community organizer. Kasi basically, naging technical advisor nga siya. Encourage yung farmers na gumamit ng drought-tolerant crops. So, it's like a form of technology. Right? And nakipag-coordinate siya sa DA para sa irrigation scheduling. Tapos, nag-form din siya ng local farmer group. So, in-organize niya yung community. Kaya, technical advisor and community organizer. Okay, so ano bang primary responsibilities mo as an AgX worker? Kahit hindi ka naman related sa AgX yung major mo, one way or another, we're gonna all do extension. So, be a change agent that adopts a suitable role. So, merong iba't ibang role yan, depende kung ano bang function or objective ng extension activity. So, you can transform attitudes and behaviors. So, for example, if you're trying to introduce a technology, before ayaw niya sa organic agriculture, halimbawa. Pero, kailangan mo siyang i-motivate. Halimbawa, na-assess mo na it's better for him or her na mag-organic. Kasi, I mean guys, lahat ng practices is hindi naman parang two sides lang na maganda ang organic at pangit ang organic. Depende yan sa sitwasyon ng farmers or ng stakeholders natin. So, kung nga, halimbawa, na-assess natin na better for them to adopt organic. So, tas ayaw ng farmer kasi masyadong mahal or ang hirap. So, For example, na-transfer mo siya from being ayaw to gusto. So, malaking bagay yon as an AgEx worker. Second, let people recognize and overcome their problems. So, mahalaga din for an AgEx worker na hayaan natin yung ating stakeholders or yung target audience na ma-recognize sila mismo kung ano yung problema nila and then to let them solve them on their own. Kasi di naman laging nandyan tayo. Right? So, link the government and the people, especially regarding sa programs, and help people form organizations, gaya nga nung sa question, influence innovation and decision-making process if i-adopt nila or not ng isang certain practice or isang certain announcement, isang certain whatever, and set a process of change. Okay. Pero yung ganyan sinasabi ko here, kapag sa AgEx naman, pag-practice kasi, usually, I mean, not gonna lie, kasi 'di ba, point system naman ang boards. So, technically sa mga ganito parang lalabas na lang na yung best answer is kung saan ka, kung halos, I mean, di lagi baka quote nyo ko. Parang madalas na naging answer is yung pinakamabait na answer. 'Di ba? Values yon. Pero hindi lang values ed ang AgEx. So dito i-emphasize ko na lang na kung gaano kahalaga yung AgEx, right? So kapag naging agricultural extension worker tayo, sana mas sa puso natin lang and the rest will follow. So hindi man natin kailangan memorize kung paano maging isang mabait na tao or isang mabait na extension worker, isang effective. Yung pinaka-easy pa din is to really be genuine and mas magkaroon ng objective and purpose kung ba't mo ginagawa yung isang bagay and the rest will follow. So, hindi yan madali. Kumbaga, sipin mo, pag mag-extension worker ka, you will be faced with people of different characteristics, age groups, different motivations, beliefs in life. And ang goal mo is to help them. Right? So, mahirap talaga siya really on practice level. So, wag natin siyang, kumbaga, i-consider as very easy lang. Okay? So, question 7, key characteristics of modern agricultural technologies. If a new organic fertilizer is gaining popularity among farmers because it easily integrates with their existing composting practices, what does this reflect sa characteristic of innovation? So, A, complexity, B, relative advantage, C, compatibility, or D, observability. May bago ba tayong chat? Okay. So, ang answer po for this is C, compatibility. No? Balikan natin mamaya bakit. Pero ito yung key characteristics of modern agricultural tech, or you may remember to CROC. So first, compatibility. Parang mas mamomotivate ka to adopt a certain technology if it's more similar to your belief. Okay, bigyan natin ng example. For example, AI, I think, kung artificial intelligence. If mas techy ka, kung like mas easy for you to use AI, so parang mas compatible ka to use it, mas likely mag-AI ka, mag-use ka ng AI. So relative advantage if merong better results. So halimbawa, pag kinompare mo yung kinompare mo yung paggamit mo ng AI in studying for boards halimbawa, or versus scanning all books in terms of time, pati kung gaano ka-efficient, saka kung paano ka natututo, or in terms of audio. And kung mas effective yung AI. So parang mas highly likely na gagamitin mo yung AI or i-adapt mo yung AI as a study method. Observability, pag kita mo talaga yung resulta ng objective mo sa pag-aaral with AI, so mas gagamitin mo siya. Pag less complex yung gamit ng AI, or halimbawa yung mga instructions, manuals, mas pansin mo mas madaling magamit mo isang bagay. So complexity yung inatake niyang characteristic. Pag less complex, mas i-adapt mo yung and reliability, so pag mayroong mas testing opportunities for this kind of technology, so mas high likely i-adapt mo din yun. Okay? Ito bang sample? kunwari ulit, organic farming. So kapag sporadic from a group siya of indigenous groups, and itong mga to usually hindi man usually, pero parang general or relatively, mas hindi sila nag-chemical. So baka mas mataas yung chance of them adopting organic versus other non-indigenous groups, farmers. Then, kapag tinesting naman nila, tapos kita nila, or nabasa nilang merong higher yields with organic agriculture, or kahit same yields pero less expense, or high profit kahit less yields, basta better results versus their other practices, so high likely, mas i-adapt nila. Pag kita nila yung resulta, mas i-adapt nila. Pag less complex, ay nga, kuwari, hindi naman ganun kadaming practices yung alahanin or masterin, etc. And pag mas natitest nila yung technology. Okay. So dito kasi sinabi, easily integrates with their existing composting practices. Kaya compatibility yung tamang sagot kasi nag-integrate nga siya dun sa kung anong existing practice niya. Yun yung best answer. So fourth categories of agricultural technologies, question 8, a researcher promotes the bio and fertilizer as a solution to nitrogen deficiency in lowland rice. So this technology is categorized under what choice? So A, product technology and component technology, B, service and package of technology, C, process and package of technology, D, information and component technology. Okay. So, ang answer po is A, product technology and component technology. Kasi yung pinoprovide niya is bio and yung pinopromote niya is bio and fertilizer. So, this is some sort of product. So, yan. Differentiate natin lahat. So, ang categories of agricultural technologies, ang mnemonics din na nilagay ko dyan ay SIPPPC. So, SIPP, merong service, information, product, and process. So, pag service, non-material siya. So, kumbaga, enabler lang siya, hindi siya prerequisite, kagaya ng crop insurance. So, pwedeng walang crop insurance, pero highly likely, it would help, right? And hindi siya something really tangible. So, ang insurance, kumbaga, versus a fertilizer product, hindi siya ganun hindi siya material na material, kaya mas under to ng service. For information, you're using some information to act or adopt a technology. So halimbawa, soil mapping systems, ginagamit mo yung information sa map para mag-decide kung saan pinaka magandang magtanim or kung anong best itanim sa lugar mo. So product is meron kang ginagamit directly and very tangible siya, such as yung bio and fertilizer o yung mga high-yielding varieties natin, vaccines, etc. And then process, may ina-apply kang method. So kagaya ng artificial insemination. Yun. So minsan nakakalito to, pero kaya yun yung guiding principle na tandaan natin yung non-material enablers ng service. Kung gumagamit ng some sort of information, halimbawa kahit GIS, Graphic Information Systems, kunwari yung Project NOAA, yun, information yun. But product used directly and tangible, and then process apply. So in terms of forms and structure, merong two types or two categories of agricultural technology, and that's package or component. If kinocombine niya iba't ibang service, information, product, and process sa isang program, so that's a package technology like Masagana 99 and the Digital Farmers Program. Kinocombine niya iba't ibang technology. Pero if yun nga, individual solutions lang siya and can be used independently. So that's a component technology. Okay. So next, communication na tayo. So elements of communication process. An agricultural extension worker plans to introduce alternate wetting and drying AWD to rice farmers. He chooses a farmer leader already practicing AWD to speak during the barangay meeting. So anong element of communication ang most emphasized in this strategy of utilizing a farmer leader? A, message, B, source, C, channel, or D, feedback. Ayan. So the answer for this is B po. So source. Kasi basically yung pinaka-strategy niya here, right, is gumamit ng isang farmer leader na magsasalita. Farmer leader ang magsasalita sa barangay meeting wherein yung farmer na to ay leader and nagpa-practice na ng AWD. So kumbaga min-maximize niya na yung source of information pinaka-effective kapag something na closer sa community or yung leader na sa community, and also mas makaka-relate kasi yun nga, kasi farmer leader na siya plus nagpa-practice na siya ng AWD. So ano-ano ba yung elements of communication? Number 1, source. 2, bakit may numbers to? Minsan kasi in order to. So for example, from a source or yung originator ng message, ine-encode niya yung naisip niya to an idea. So, thought to idea. And then afterwards, nagiging message to, yung content. Tapos yung message, pinaparating through a channel. So, ang channel is yung bridge between the source and the receiver. Then, yung receiver naman, dinedecode niya or binibigyan niyang meaning yung message. And then afterwards, ini-interpret ng receiver. Tapos, so hindi naman ito necessarily in order, pero kita niyo yung parang flow in a sense. Kasi pwede namang may noise sa may encoding pa lang na kunwari ang daming iniisip ng source, hindi niya mabuo ng maayos yung thought niya. Parang ganun. So, hindi naman siya in order talaga necessarily. Yun. Tapos, noise is the barrier, feedback, yung effect. Kumbaga pabalik from receiver to source or kung ano yung naging effect ng source. Pabalik from the receiver to source or kung ano yung naging effect ng message ng source sa receiver. Context, kung ano yung environment na ginagalawan nila. So kung masyadong malaki yung session hall, tapos hindi naman marinig yung speaker or yung extension worker. So context-wise, merong barrier or merong hindrance dun sa extension process kasi hindi naman, kumbaga, ang laki-laki ng session hall kasi hindi rinig ng iba. So dapat may mic, parang gano'n. And then time. So, nagmamatter din yun sa communication. Na halimbawa, kung i-schedule ko tong session na to ng 12 midnight, so para naman tayong engot, right? Yun. Ayun, so that's the source elements of communication. Then question 10, so roles na tayo of effective feedback mechanisms. So again, this is based on the table of specifications. So an office releases instructional videos on climate smart agriculture, but later receives reports that many farmers misunderstood mulching as burning crop residues. So mali yung meaning nila sa mulching. Which analytical conclusion best explains the role of feedback in improving communication here? So A, na-expose ng feedback yung encoding weaknesses and misinterpretations. B, na-confirm ng feedback na yung message ay naka-achieve ng full comprehension. C, in-indicate ng feedback na yung chosen channel was inappropriate. Or D, in-ensure ng feedback na na-bypass ng message yung cultural barriers. Okay. So, the answer for this is letter A. So, in-expose niya yung naging weakness sa pag-encode or ano ba yung sasabi nating encoding? Yung thought to idea and yung misinterpretations. Kasi technically sa misinterpretation talaga hindi nagkasundo na misunderstand na yung mulching ay burning crop residues. So, paano nila nalaman yun? Through feedback mechanism nga, na nagkaroon ng reports na maraming farmers ay naka-misunderstand yung practice na yun. So, pinakita niya yung misinterpretation. Okay. So, ano bang role ng feedback mechanism? So, first, nakakomplete niya yung communication loop. Kagaya nung nasa question, na-complete yung loop kung naiintindihan ba talaga ng receivers, ng farmers, yung na-pertain sa extension activity. So, nabe-verify din yung message effectiveness and kung pag ganito, alam mo nang na-misunderstand, so may improve mo yung material, may improve mo yung program, extension program. May revise or mako-correct. And then, nasa-strengthen din yung engagement and trust kasi technically, pag ni-utilize mo yung feedback and pag gumagamit ka ng feedback, parang sinasabi mo talaga na interested ka sa kung anong naging resulta ng extension activity mo or kung ano yung nakuha nila from you. Identifies noise and barriers, kagaya nga ng misinterpretations, and encourages participation. So how will it be effective? Magiging effective yung feedback mechanisms mo if nagawa niya ng maayos yung rows. So halimbawa meron kang feedback mechanism, kung merong feedback form, yung pre-session na ito after, pero konti lang yung nag-respond. So ibig sabihin hindi siya naging effective kasi hindi naman naging complete yung communication loop pa rin due to low response rate. So, ba't ko sinasabi yun? Kung may feedback form to, sumagot kayo. Ayun. Tapos, kung yung questions mo sa feedback form, hindi naman nag-gauge talaga yung effectiveness or kung ano ba talaga yung objective ng session. So, ibig sabihin, hindi effective yung feedback mechanism. And et cetera, et cetera. So, dapat makuha niya yung goals. Ayan, so since nasa half naman tayo, I think we can do 3-minute break. So, balik tayong 8 o'clock for questions 11 to 20. So again, for more questions, pwede naman kayo mag-message sa akin sa FB, Facebook, hindi naman ako nangangagat, or email niyo sa primerpao@gmail.com. Ayan, okay. So we're back, 8 o'clock. Sa Jingle yung iba. CR break. Kumbaga. Okay. So continuing, we're in models of communication. Okay. And question 11. So over several training sessions, a farmer steadily improves his management of saltwater intrusion by learning, applying, and refining techniques from both experts and peers. So which model of communication is best reflected here? Is it A, Newcomb's model, B, Lassa's model, C, Shannon and Weaver model, and or D, Dance's helical model? So ito din yung one of the things na wala akong ka-idea months before boards. Yung ginawa ko sabay, umubo lang ng umubo. Hello. Hello. Okay. So the answer po is D, Dance's helical model. Kasi yung model na to is basically nagsasabi na each communication adds new insights to previously learned. So habang nagko-continuous yung nagko-continue yung communication, nag-add up lang siya dun sa previous niyang knowledge and nalalaman. Kaya dito parang nag-steadily improve yung management niya by continuous learning, applying, and refining ng mga techniques from both experts and peers. Saka kung bakit hindi yung tatlo, so deep dive natin here why. Merong 7 famous models of communication. So that's Laswell, Shannon and Weavers, Newcombs, Osgood and Scrams, Berlos, Dances, and Kincaids. And ito yung keywords with each one. So first, Laswell. So here, ina-emphasize yung impact ng media or yung effect na dinudulot ng media sa communication. So, halimbawa, especially kung with elections or yung mga troll campaigns. Kung sobrang daming troll campaigns or fake news propaganda na nakikita natin sa media. And basically, kapag mas nakita mo na makita yon, mas madaling maniwala yung mga tao or mas maapektuhan ka. Kumbaga may effect yung media talaga in terms of communication saka influencing people. Ina-highlight yun ng Laswell model of communication, media. As in yung media. Okay? Shannon and Weaver naman, noise. So ang hinighlight dito is noise. Basically, ang medyo history ng model na to is originally for telephone models yung purpose nila ng communication. Like, di ba, may mga telephone signals, ganyan. Tapos yung noise doon is nagre-refer sa signal interferences sa telepono. Pero later on, naging kinonsider na rin to na general model of communication na merong iba't ibang types of noise sa communication na nakaka-hinder nga dun sa source to receiver na tamang interpretation or tamang pag-deliver ng message. So, Newcomb's social relationship, basically, mag-uusap at mag-uusap daw ang dalawang tao hanggat magkaroon sila ng same orientation on a certain matter. So, halimbawa ulit with organic agriculture before, na si person A, kung ano siya yung extension worker, then person B yung farmer, mag-uusap at mag-uusap sila, communicate sila tuloy-tuloy hanggat hindi sila parehong pro or hindi sila parehas na con or na hindi pro for organic agriculture. So, merong social relationship. Osgood and Scrams, exchanging roles. So basically, sasabi lang nito na ang source sa isang pagkakataon or time, pwedeng maging receiver naman sa susunod. So yung source, pag nagpadala siya ng message sa kausap niya, or for example, kayo ngayon, ako yung source ngayon, tapos pag sumagot kayo sa tanong ko, kayo yung receiver. Pero pag nagtanong kayo sa akin, kayo naman yung source, tapos ako naman yung magiging receiver ng tanong. So nag-exchange ng roles. Hindi necessarily source ka forever. And throughout the communication process, nagkakaroon ng exchanging. Berlos model naman ay nag-highlight ng characteristics ng SMCR, yung source message channel sa receiver, na merong iba't ibang characteristics yung source. So halimbawa, ako nakaka-affect yung characteristic ko na I'm an agriculturist para mas maging effective na speaker tonight, right, na characteristic. Tapos, sa message naman, yung PPT, yung form of PPT na ito is mas effective to relay yung information versus walang PPT at all or walang visual aid na nagsasalita lang ako to people. Diba? Parang hindi mo siya mabivisualize. Or, nagsasalita ako ngayon, hindi lang siya visual. Parang gano'n. And yung channel, so kung gaano ka-effective yung Google Meet na ito or itong free session, FB Live, to communicate my message or my teachings right now to you guys na receiver. And then receiver, so kung gaano magiging ka-effective yung sinasabi ko ngayon is kung gaano kayo ka-engage with the topic. So syempre, most likely, pag higher engage kayo sa topic or sa AgX or sa session tonight, or mas nakatulog kayo ng or di kayo gutom ngayon, mas ma-absorb natin yung message. So nagmamatter yung characteristics ng source, message, channel sa receiver. Dances naman, na-discuss natin kanina na nag-add up. And Kincaid's, mag-uusap at mag-a-adjust kayo sa isa't isa hanggat mayroon kayong mutual understanding. Mutual understanding sa isang communication process. Like, same kayo ng understanding, same kayo ng paniniwala, same kayo ng talagang pagkakaintindi sa isang bagay. So, talagang naging effective yung communication. So, ito nagpo-focus sa understanding. So, depende na yan sa phrasing ng tanong kung ano yung mas nag-a-apply na model of communication. So, para saan ba yung models of communication? Kasi actually, nung high school ako, parang hindi ko naman din alam kung anong purpose ba ng models of communication nun. Pero basically, ito nga for visualization and simplification of what happens during a communication process. So, at least meron na tayong basihan or starting basis kung ano ba yung nangyayari sa communication or kung saan mas magiging ng problema. Parang ma-anticipate mo, ma-analyze mo, or ma-adjust mo yung strategy depending sa goal, audience, or context. So makikita mo kung saan yung problema pag nilatag mo sa mapa given this model. Kasi illustrated na. Saka technically, itong mga models of communication ay nag-explain ng iba't ibang theories or iba't ibang factors that affects on how we communicate to people. Okay. So next is communication strategies. Question 12. A new government fertilizer subsidy program is being rolled out nationwide. So the Department of Agriculture wants all farmers to be informed of the uniform procedures and requirements as quickly as possible. So which communication paradigm best suits this scenario? So A, bottom-up, B, group, C, top-down, or D, participatory. Kamusta naman ang inyong pre-review scores right now? Or wala ba kayong mga tanong dyan, etc.? Thank you sa ating mga continuous responders sa ating, meron din pala sa FB Live, pati lalo na dito sa Google Meet. So sana okay pa kayo guys. So the answer is C, top-down communication. Kasi may iba't ibang purpose kung anong strategy ng communication yung ibibigay mo. So for this one, sabi kasi gusto na ma-inform lahat as quickly as possible. Saka yung nagpapasa ng info is yung Department of Agriculture. So from the government, pababa sa ating farmers. Pero meron din palang mga manifestation here na ayaw nila ng term na top-down kasi parang nagsasabi na inferior ba yung mga stakeholders natin sa iba't ibang. Anyway, so medyo na. Chika. Pero yung top-down. So based on number of audience, kagaya ng nasabi natin kanina, merong individual, group, saka mass. So isa ring kung kailan natin siya ginagamit, yung individual, kapag mas nag-a-address ng low literacy, kasi mas ma-explain mo sa isang tao kapag individual kung low yung literacy niya, kahit anong text pa yung mo, hindi naman siya makakaunawa ng maayos, kumbaga. And then, resistance to new practices. So, pag yung mga mas resistant, mas madali natin silang mamomotivate via individual strategy. Kasi, technically, hindi to For example, ito yung tanong or ito na yung situation in reality. Hindi naman siya absolute na ganito na siya na porket may resistance sa new practices, individual yung best. So, depende pa rin sa circumstance to. So, ito lang yung parang usual. So, pag resistant ka sa new practices, mas ma-identify kasi yung bakit ka resistant kapag individual or sensitive issue, hindi mo ma-reveal in a group or mass communication. Kaya mas effective individual. Or to address din yung misinformation, so mas okay individual. Sa group, pag na-address yung limited resource, kasi mas sulit nga, kasi one is too many. No? And yung weak farmer cooperation, so at least kapag sasama-sama mo sila, tapos mapagko-cooperate sila sa isa't isa kasi under sila ng group communication strategy or yun nga, need for collaboration. Then mas kapag merong urgent need or merong wide geographic dispersion, so syempre kung kayo right now tayo, iba't iba yung pinagalingan natin ngayon na nandito sa session tonight. So mas mabilis kapag via this internet or via this Zoom meeting kaysa pumunta ako isa-isa sa location nyo. Yung awareness, kasi pag naman sa awareness, necessarily, parang gusto mo lang silang maging aware nga sa isang certain knowledge. So, kahit mas lang muna, at least alam lang nila, meron silang general information. Tapos yung mas specific na or mas need nila or mas local specific, ibang kind of strategy na group or individual. Or kapag limited nga yung manpower mo, so kumari, isa lang, o kung nga nga yung upstep, hindi naman 100 yung lecturers. So, mas effective if may 1-2 mas. Okay. So, based on its paradigm, so mayroong top-down and bottom-up. Yung kanina is based on number of audience, ito is based on paradigm. So, 1, top-down, and then 2, bottom-up. So, sa top-down, nag-a-address tayo ng low awareness of government policies, gaya din ng question na gustong i-address urgently and quickly ng DA yung technology and spread to people. So, need for fast and large-scale dissemination, uniform messaging, and compliance with natural direction. National direction, kaya government policies. Bottom up, so pag bottom up, sinasabi natin na kunwari from farmers to government or from farmers to sa ating extension workers or farmers to institutions. So ina-address niya yung low adoption rate kasi kumbaga ina-identify mo with them kapag nag-bottom up kung ano ba talaga yung kailangan nila, right? Ano bang kasi basically pag mas kailangan mo yung isang bagay na tech, mas high likely na i-adapt mo siya kahit hindi ka na i-persuade ng extension worker. So mas effective yung bottom up pag gusto mo ng higher adoption rate. Or pag may mistrust nga sa government kasi kahit naman magpababa ka ng polisiya kung hindi na naniniwala yung government, hindi magiging effective yung extension activity. Or disconnection between local and current programs and sustainability kasi in a sense, relatively mas sustainable yung isang extension activity if bottom-up siya. Kasi galing from them and binuo mo yung activity or yung program with the stakeholders mismo. So, in-involve natin sila. Okay. So, that's the communication strategies. So, next naman for diffusion and adoption processes. So, from Rogers' diffusion of innovations, why do laggards adopt last compared to other groups? Is it because they are less educated and therefore incapable of change? B, usually require strong cultural, economic, or peer pressures before adopting. C, always geographically isolated from innovations. Or D, they do not trust any form of agricultural extension. So basically, hinahanap nito yung pinaka characteristic ng laggards sa diffusion of innovations. Okay. So, ang sagot po is B. I think, matapobre naman ng A. Pero gets naman kung pwede siyang maging rationale din in a sense. Kaya ata ginawang option to. I mean, hindi naman porket less educated, hindi na incapable of change. Pero one way or another, factor naman siya. With C, technically, part din to ng characteristic ng laggards. Pero mas mas na-emphasize lang to ng B, yung laggards group natin. Tapos D, hindi naman sila in a sense na hindi nagtitrust na any form of agricultural extension. So, marami lang talaga silang hesitations. So, parang dito is choosing the best answer. Kasi one way or another, pwede naman maging answer lahat in a sense. So, laggards, usually nag-require sila ng strong cultural, economic, or peer pressure bago mag-adapt. Peer pressure, parang required na talaga. So, sige na nga, gawin ko na din. Parang ganun. Ni-require na ng government or ni-require na para mabigyan sila ng free resources ng barangay. So, talagang i-adapt na nila yung tech. Parang ganun. Okay, so adoption patterns, nagbabase to sa Everett Rogers Diffusion of Innovations, and actually hindi lang to with regards to agriculture, so in other industries din. So, sinasabi here na merong iba't ibang klase of adopters, and yung nabanggit niya kanina is laggards. So, laggards talaga yan. Hindi ko lang sure if ibang language tong kaya may laggards. Kasi feeling ko naman di sila na wrong spelling. Pero laggard siya mas commonly referred. So may innovators, may early adopters, early majority, late majority, and laggards. So yung innovators, nagko-compose daw ng 2.5% ng population generally. So nagpa-follow siya ng bell curve or yung standard usual distribution, normal distribution of people. And then 13, kumari sa 50 plus ngayon sa meeting na to, parang highly likely 2.5% sa ating innovators. So mamaya papakita ko naman, I think, wala ba? Ito, meron pala naman. Yung iba't ibang characteristics per adopter. Tapos 13.5% sa atin early adopters, 34% early majority, late majority, tapos 16% laggards. So, kaya na mag-math kung ilan yan sa 50 kasi ayoko mag-math. Okay. So, yung S-curve here, basically sinasabi kung paano yung path or yung speed ng adoption. So, yung pinaka-characteristic ng innovators natin is sila yung pinakaunang nag-a-adapt ng isang technology. Kasi ito yung mga risk takers. And then, magkakaroon na lang ng time dyan na mag-ramp up yung mag-a-adapt. So, ito yung mga early majority na. Yung majority, itong part na to. So, at this point, parang 50% daw nag-adapt na. And maglalag siya pag pa-laggards na lang natitira yung last 16%. So, mauuna innovators and then after some time, yung majority natin plus yung last na yung laggards. So, parang sasabi lang ito yung patterns kasi merong patterns sa questions. So, ano bang characteristics ng innovations na nag-influence sa adoption? So, ito rin yung kanina. Kumbaga, tinitingnan nga to if i-adapt yung isang bagay ng isang receiver or stakeholder sa agriculture with context ng extension. Okay. Ayan, so compatibility, kung gaano nga ka-similar. Anyway, so tapos na natin yung kanina. So for question 14, during a community field day, farmers watch a demonstration of a new organic fertilizer. So some farmers begin to weigh the costs and benefits compared to their current practice. Anong stage daw ng adoption process yon kapag nag-weigh na ng cost and benefits compared sa current? So is it A, awareness, B, interest, C, evaluation, or D, trial? Anong mga schools ng mga tao i-teach? Tinanong siya sa bago mag-start yung live stream. Kaso, medyo konti pa yung tao nun. Kaya, pwede bang matanong ulit? Kasi ako ay curious. Chismosa. Saan school po sila galing? People of the Philippines. Unless meron pala ditong hindi galing sa Philippines. Okay, so, babasahin ko mamaya. Sagot ay C, evaluation po. So, ano bang differences ng 4 na itechi? Yeah. So, pala ito muna. So, sa stages in adoption, stages in adoption, nagpa-follow siya ng, ito yung usual pipeline. So, una, magiging aware ka, okay, alam ko na may ganito. And then, second, magkakaroon ka ng interest na about it. So, pwede na search ka na kung ano ba talaga to, ano ba ibang info about this. Third, ine-evaluate mo na. I think it's just contextualized accordingly. Kunwari, Upstep, in choosing Upstep. Kaya parang ako nagma-market for Upstep ngayon. Pero halimbawa, una, aware ka lang na may Upstep ba, Upstep? Baka pala mali ako. URC na nga lang to. Upstep pala, Upstep. URC. Awareness. So, nakita mo na, oh, may URC. Okay, may ganitong review center pala. Gumagawa pala sila ng review sessions. Okay. Interest, nag-search ka na check mo na yung FB page ng URC. Tapos tinignan mo kung magkano yung rates. Ano ba yung iba't iba nilang events. Saan sila pupunta. Right? So, interesado ka na dun sa matter na yun. Pero kapag sa tech, sa extension context, syempre, sa isang certain agricultural technology, mas makaka-relate lang tayo if mas real. So, evaluation. Ine-evaluate ito, papasok to, halimbawa, ine-evaluate mo na kung nakita mo yung presyo. Tapos ine-evaluate mo, kino-compare mo siya with competitors. If, worth it ba dito? Or kahit without competitors, worth it ba yung magiging oras ko dito? Mukha kayang kukuha nga talaga ako ng program. Parang ganun. Tapos trial, what if ginawa mo yung mga process na yan before ka nakakuha dito sa free? So at least itong free, nakikita mo na kung paano ba magturo yung lecturers ng URC. So parang medyo trial to, di ba, in a sense. So kung pangit yung turo ko, edi hindi ka magpa-proceed, right, with URC. Yok, ano ba yan? Ang pangit ng turo. Bakit ako mag-URC? So nakikita mo dun sa adoption. And then adoption, na-decide mo, ay, ang ganda pala, okay. Edi, i-adopt mo or mag-enroll ka na. Nakakatawa yung ginagawa. Ayun. So, yun. Pero necessarily, hindi naman laging adopt. So, pwedeng i-reject mo nga. Ayaw mo. Tapos, itong awareness, interest, evaluation, trial, or adoption ay kahit hindi in order. So, pwedeng mauna yung trial. So, halimbawa, sinend lang tong link sa'yo ng teacher mo. Uy, may free review. Check mo. Ganyan. Free nga di ba? Sino mo tumatanggi sa libre? So, parang inuna mo yung trial. Check mo muna ngayon. Tapos afterwards, mag-search ka na at least naging aware ka dahil sa trial. Tapos, isa-search mo na sa FB, kaya mag-interest. So, hindi necessarily in order yung stages, pero ito lang yung usual. And then, may change decisions. So, halimbawa, nag-avail ka na, nag-enroll ka na, kaso parang nagbago yung isip mo, magpapa-refund ka na tutuloy. So, pwede rin gano'n. So, balik tayo sa stages in diffusion. If interested din kayo malaman ano bang meaning ng difference ng diffusion sa adoption, diffusion is mas nagtotalk on the spread ng technology over time saka over different channels. And mas nag-involve siya ng mas maraming tao, usually. So dito daw, merong iba't ibang stages: knowledge, persuasion, decision, implementation, and confirmation. And as I've mentioned kanina, sa bawat stage, pwedeng iba't ibang channels. So halimbawa, knowledge, or parang medyo counterpart ito ay awareness. Gusto mo lang maging aware yung mga tao. Mass method. So, parang posters, ganyan. Tapos pag persuasion na, gusto mo mas intimate, group methods na. So, kaya nag-iiba-iba yung channels of communication na ginagamit. And basically, in-explain lang here na sa knowledge, nagmamatter yung previous practice ng isang tao, yung problema niya mismo, saka yung kailangan niya, pati yung kung gaano siya ka-innovative and kung ano yung norms nila dun sa pag-accept ng knowledge. Plus, nagmamatter din yung kanyang socio-economic characteristics, personality variables, sa communication behavior. So parang ito yung diniscuss ko kanina na nagmamatter yung characteristics ng bawat parts of the communication. Okay. And then, sa persuasion process, so ito na yung pinapersuade mo siya na mag-arrive into adoption or a good decision. So, nagmamatter dyan yung relative advantage, compatibility, o yung CROC natin kaina, complexity, triability, and observability. So, diba technically nga kasi kapag mas nakita mo mas maganda yung resulta nitong tech na to over other, so mas napapersuade ka na i-adopt yung certain technology na yun. Kaya dyan siya pumapasok. So, after persuasion, mag-decide siya if mag-adopt siya or magre-reject. So, pag nag-adapt siya, i-continue niya or pwedeng afterwards, hindi niya na itutuloy. So, that's valid also. Or pwedeng nireject niya initially, pero after gusto niya nang i-adopt. Or i-reject niya, tapos reject pa din. Okay. Then after mo mag-decide, so ini-implement mo na, and then confirmation. Implementation, as in yung mismong implementation ng tech. And then after some time, ito yung implementation, parang trial, tinatry mo. And then yung confirmation, yung talagang in-adopt mo na. So na-confirm mo na it's beneficial for you, or you'll accept the technology due to some reasons or factors. So you confirm it na. Okay. So that's diffusion, and this is adoption. So adopter category. So an extension worker plans a technology diffusion strategy. Step 1 daw, ipapilot niya yung technology sa partnership with startup farmers. Startup farmers, ito yung mga scalable businesses or mga innovator businesses na nag-ooperate on a small scheme of business. Ayan, sana familiar tayo sa startup farmers. Pero basically, startup farmers are usually very risk takers. Step 2, gagamitin daw yung farmers na to para ma-influence yung peers nila through exposure visits. Ay, mali pala, masyado kung na ano. Startup farmers, parang basta yung mga mahilig nang mag-start din na farmers, yung mga nangunguna na mag-start. Parang mga risk takers. Pwede rin naman pala. Pero masyado ko palang kinontekstualize sa business kanina. So step 3, mag-roll out daw ng farmer field schools for larger groups after magamit yung startup farmers para ma-influence yung peers. So anong sequence of adopter categories daw? Ang being strategically targeted, kasi kahit ito may strategy. Hindi porket mag-extension ka, uy, nakita mo yung isang tao dun sa barangay, sige sa kanya ako unang magtuturo. So ideally, meron kang targeting. Okay. So this is marami nang sumasagot and ang dami kong EBAS. So ayan na yung timer. Okay. So the answer is B, innovators, and then sinunod nila sa early adopters bago yung early majority. Ay, naku. Okay. So bakit? Basically, yung startup farmers natin is considered mostly dahil sa characteristics sila na innovators. And then, yung ating pag-influence mismo sa peers through exposure visits, usually ang na-persuade niyan ay mga early adopters, no? Tapos yung mga larger groups, early majority na. And based din sa iba't ibang choices, so necessarily, hindi naman pwedeng after nito, laggards na. So B yung best option. So basically, madali yung choices. Pero ano ba yung iba't ibang categories and ano ba yung characteristics nila? Kasi basically doon mag-revolve yung tanong, di ba? Kung ano bang meron sa kanila. So yung kanina nga, yung innovators natin ay venturesome. Ibig sabihin nito, kuha ng iba't ibang opportunities. Willing silang kumuha ng iba't ibang opportunities. Ma-venture sila. Okay? May iba't sa iba't ibang venture. Risk takers, kasi technically sila yung nauuna. So kahit hindi pa proven tama yung isang bagay or proven maganda, ina-adapt na nila. So, meron lang privilege to do this is mga financially able. Pwede rin pala. Kaya financially able yung innovators in general. Kasi mas kaya nila mag-risk kasi mas may pera sila, di ba? So, hindi ka na mag-risk kapag parang sketch ito, mukhang scam, ganyan. Pero pag marami kang pera, sige, okay lang, kahit mas scam ako, wala naman akong pake, marami akong pera. Parang ganun. So kaya sila yung usually gumagawa ng pilot projects, yung ating innovators. And kaya konti lang sila sa population, 2.5%. Okay? So that's according to statistics na parang yun yung common percentage distribution ng iba't ibang categories of adopters. So yung usual na tanong dito ng mga lecturers is saan ka daw kabilang? So halimbawa, merong different concerns kayo with artificial intelligence, pero technically it's a new tech. Saan ka ba kabilang? I think right now, feeling ko lang, kung nagpa-practice ka na ng AI, parang nasa late majority na ngayon or early majority, tapos yung mga hindi pa, yung mga laggards sa late majority. Pero ewan ko, I mean, Sample lang yun. So, yung mga early adopters, sila yung mga opinion leaders. So, the man to check with and with influence. So, usually, ang strategy, kukuha ka ng mga leader na, saka the man to check. The man to check with, parang ang quotable, the man to check with. Pero technically, yung parang, ano ba, yung pwede mong, kuwari, meron kang best friend, tas sobrang talino niya, tapos parang kahit anong gawin niya, pinaniniwalaan mo. So, titingnan mo na lang yung gagawin niya, tas gagawin mo na din. Parang ganun. Ganun yung parang demand to check with. So, may influence siya sa'yo, basically. So, ayun yung key target groups ng extension workers kasi, yun nga, kapag after mo silang makuha, they can influence further yung ibang categories, kagaya ng early majority. Ito mga to, deliberate. So talagang pag kailangan nila and talagang choice, parang in-accept nila yung option. And evidence seeker sila. So usually yung evidence sinisik nila from the early adopters or from the innovators. Okay. So ito mga to nagde-decide based on early adopters din. Late majority, mga skeptics, so traditional, and nag-a-adopt na lang out of pressure. Kagaya yung sinabi ko kanina, kapag forsado na sila na, kasi ito lang isa-subsidize ng government pag pinalaktis mo to halimbawa. So, kumbaga napilitan na lang sila out of circumstance. And then laggards o mga traditional, suspicious, and socially isolated. So, kapag socially isolated sila sa, kuwari mga tribes natin, kuwari tribes natin, hindi sila mas gumagamit ng iba't ibang, ayokong, baka naman sabihin masyado kung ano. Pero kuwari, ano ba pwede? AI, kuwari artificial intelligence. Baka yung mga tribes natin, since medyo socially isolated sila in terms of geographic also. And talaga yung mga indigenous groups yung talaga naka-isolate. So most likely, hindi pa sila nag-a-adopt ng tech na to. And may rason yun kung bakit. Yung laggards, hindi porket laggard sila or late sila mag-adopt ng technology ay pangit na. So, iba't iba tayo ng estado sa buhay at circumstance. Kaya hindi natin dapat na-judge lahat ng categories. Okay. So for example then with COVID vaccines, no? So yung mga willing maturukan kahit ano para lang mas maging safe, o di baka innovator sila, right? Yung mga nauna talaga. Or baka yung mga sumali sa experiments, baka may ganun. Baka lang, may ganun. So innovator sila. Tapos yung mga nagpaturo ka talaga ng nalamang may vaccine, ganyan. Tapos yung mga skeptics pa na ayaw kasi baka may pangit na mga anti-COVID vaccines, which is meron pa rin yan ngayon. And gets naman, meron silang valid reasons why, right? So, ayan na natin sila. Buhay nila yan, right? So, well, pero maraming factors involved doon. Halimbawa, paano pag nagka-COVID siya dahil, hindi siya nagpa-vaccine, tapos naapektuhan niya yung kapitbahay. Pero iba na yun. So siguro ang key lesson ko doon ay hindi rin to absolute, okay? So, depende sa circumstance. Makaawayan niyo ko eh. Anyway, so yun yung mga categories. Characteristics ng adopters. So 16, program planning. Which type of planning best applies when an extension organization prepares alternative measures to counter possible crop failure due to climate-related risks? So A, is it tactical, B, strategic, C, contingency, or D, managerial? May messages pa tayo. Thank you. Ang ganda daw magturo. Ano ba yung pangit? Ay, sa bagay, may pangit pala. Ano bang characteristics ng pagtuturo? Ayun, ano daw? Napaka-learn ko lang. Iubo mo lang man. Sorry. Sorry guys. Okay. So, the answer for this is contingency plan. Saan ito mga ito? Ayan. So, contingency kasi yung contingency planning, basically, ang definition nito is nagpe-prepare ka ng alternative measures para ma-counter mo nga yung possible failure. So, kumbaga may backup plan ka or prepared ka na for what's gonna happen. Like, what bad cheese is gonna happen. So, types of planning, meron tayong 4, kagaya nga ng choices na 4 kanina. So, pag strategic, kinoconsider mo yung big picture and for long-term planning siya, for direction. Pero pag it concerns ang day-to-day, so tactical yun, and involving following the strategic plan, or for short term, that's tactical. Then contingency nga, in-anticipate mo na yung future problem, tapos nagpe-prepare ka na on how to deal with it. Managerial, kino-coordinate mo yung iba't ibang resources like budget and manpower. So ang common example to here is the preparation for the board exam. So for example, no, ang strategic, ang big picture mo, ang long-term plan mo ay mag-top sa boards. So that's the big picture. Ayun ang gusto mong direction. So paano mo paplanuhin yun for a certain month ngayon na parang i-divide mo yung iba't ibang subjects sa, ano ba ngayon? Ano na ba ngayon? June, July, August, September, October, November. So 5 months. Ilan nga ulit yung subjects? Kung ano, isang subjects per, di ba subjects? Nakalimutan ko na, 6. Anim na subjects. Nga ba? Oh my God. So i-divide mo per month or parang may strategy ka kung paano mo hahatiin or paano mo i-achieve ang iyong big goal of being a board top-notcher. Kung mag-goal lang kayo, top-notcher na. Kasi di ba sabi nga nila, at least kapag hindi ka naging top-notcher, board passer ka. Saka, libre naman mga okay. Yun. So, big picture. Yun yung big picture long term. And kung paano mo may achieve yung direction na yun. Day to day, so halimbawa para maging top-notcher, paano mo i-divide yung araw-araw mo na, for example, mag-aaral ka for 3 hours a day or 2 hours a day, tapos eto, ganito yung methods mo, ganito yung practices mo na magbabasa ka muna by this time, tapos after, magta-test ka ng sarili mo, ganyan. So, tactical, kaya siya day to day. Contingency anticipates future problems. So, in being a top-notcher, parang sobrang naging busy ka, may nangyaring something 3 months before, para hindi ka na makapag-aral. Tapos, ang nangyari, magbo-board exam na, kulang pa yung aral mo. So, kumbaga, pinalano mo na kung paano gagawin mo pag nangyari yun. So, dapat may ready ka ng yung mga most important subject questions na lang muna or yung mga topics na maraming question items na ibibigay sa board exam. So, pinaprepare mo na kung paano ka mag-deal sa mga problemang yun. So, halimbawa, pagdating ng board exam day din pala mismo, hindi ka nagising. Oh my God. So, para hindi mangyari yun, kukontakin mo na yung family mo na kasama mo sila para at least meron talagang gigising sa'yo or may alarm ka talagang sandamakmak ng board exam day. Dapat parang pagpaplanuhan mo na kung ano yung mangyayaring future problem. Managerial, so kino-coordinate mo yung given this budget mo lang na kung wari, parang medyo mahal kasi mahal naman talaga mag-review sa totoo lang. So parang mas coordinate mo yung mga free resources, consolidate mo yung mga free resources online at yun yung gagamitin mo in terms of studying and to be a top-notcher. Which is, hindi naman necessarily dapat talaga nagre-review program. Parang depende na yun sa tao and kaya naman din talaga kahit wala kang review center. Ayan ha, baka sabihin nyo nagma-marketing lang ako dito kanina. So, depende na yun sa inyo. So, depende sa resources mo, right? Yun. So, kino-coordinate mo and kino-combine mo yung budget manpower. Budget manpower. Actually, yung time din, pwede dito. So, kung paano mo di-divide ngayon time, parang sa strategy. Mas, lang siya. Basta mas focusing on resources yung managerial. Okay. So, ano bang principles of extension planning? So, first, dapat meron kang clear and significant objective. Kasi, di ba malamang, pag hindi naman malinaw yung objective mo, talagang matutuliro ka. Parang, kumbaga, example na lang din siguro sa pag-review. Dapat clear yung ano bang objective mo. Which is, in general, maging top-notcher nga or pumasa. Diba? So, at least clear siya. Very, very, parang, naiintindihan mo talaga. And significant siya dun sa kung anong gusto mong ma-achieve. So, baka kasi mamaya, ang goal mo sa pagre-review ay bumagsak. Bakit naman? Significant ba yun? Diba? Anyway, so yun, dapat may silbi yung objective mo sa malinaw para hindi ka nalilito. Prioritize based on resources and time. So, ito din sinasabi ko. So, dito ko na lang din ipapasok yung review tips, guys, para 2-in-1 tayo. Limited lang yung resources mo, and time mo. So, eto parang sinasabi ko lagi na sa sobrang daming resources na nagkalat online, parang maganda na pumili ka lang din muna or tumapos ka muna ng iba bago ka mag-move on sa iba. Kasi baka may ma-overload ka naman sa sobrang daming resource or source material. Tapos i-ayon mo lahat yun sa oras mo. So gaya din sabi ko kanina na wala, sobrang dami mong oras. Kasi wala kang siya na pinagkakaabalahan ngayon kundi mag-aral. Eh di mas kaya mo mas mag-alat ng time in different subjects. Pero pag konti lang, ipaprayo mo yung mas maraming prayo mo yung mga matters or topics na mas maraming question items. Or ipaprayo mo yung mas nahihirapan kang subject. Tapos kapag may extra time ka na lang, saka yung ibang subject. So very, very limited yung time natin. And yung resources naman natin is somehow unlimited dahil na rin sa internet. So, kumbaga, kahit sa isang topic lang sa table of specifications, kaya mo atang mag-spend ng isang linggo kung gusto mong magpaka-master doon. Right. Kasi, ang dami-daming pwede mong i-deep dive sa isang bagay, sa isang topic. Okay. So, for example, yung models, kaya mo mag-spend dyan ng isang buwan kung gusto mong masterin yung models, kung paano ba siya ginawa, bakit siya ginawa, di ba? Pero bakit? So, dapat nag-prioritize ka based on resources and time. So, indicate available resources and utilization. So, maganda ilista mo na lahat ng resources na meron ka, tapos at least ma-maximize mo yung lahat. Ano ba, makita mo yung kung anong mga kulang, etc. Siyempre, hindi ka magsasama sa plano mo nang wala ka namang resource. So, halimbawa, napakaganda ng plano mo, ganto-ganto, di ba? Kung ano, babaksyon ka rin. Tapos, ang dami mong gustong puntahan, pero kulang naman yung budget natin. Eh di, wala lang din, di ba? Nakarelate ako dun. So, ayun. Yun, kaya dapat na sa aayon lang na resource. Definite plan of work, ayun nga, ihati-hati mo na in terms of review season kung paano mo hahatiin yung review sa iba't ibang subjects given this time. So, wari ako nun, parang nati ko talaga na pag ganito araw or mga gantong moment, uunahin ko yung ansay kasi sobrang wala akong alam sa ansay during that time. So, inuna ko yung ansay sa crop ko. Diba? Have an evaluation. So, ito maganda sa review. Meron kang, parang tinetest mo yung sarili mo if nag improve ka ba sa scores. So, halimbawa, if i-retain tong live na ito, pwede mo balikan next week or next month kung nag-review ka na if tama na yung if tama pa or tama na yung sagot mo sa mga questions kung merong some sort of improvement. Ibig sabihin, effective yung ginagawa mong technique on studying for the boards, right? Involving local people and relevant works, ito iba na to. General agreement at levels and equitable benefits. Ito in terms of extension, maganda lang din pag ini-involve natin yung local people and relevant orgs nga sa pinaplano natin para mas sustainable and mas highly likely nag-a-address talaga ng problema nila. So, mas magiging madali yung adoption and extension process. Tataas din yung rapport between you, ganyan-ganyan. Diba? Then, general agreement at level. Sinasabi lang nito na yung iba't ibang stakeholders na involved. So, halimbawa, merong DA program, tapos ganitong practice, dapat nag-a-align sa local, nag-a-align sa provincial, nag-a-align sa leaders. Lahat kayo merong general agreement on principles on how to do things sa extension activity na yun. And then equitable benefits, so dapat nagbe-benefit lahat ng kaya. So, for example, sa mga ayuda, hindi pwedeng yung kamag-anak lang ni kapitan, di ba? Dapat lahat merong benefits na makukuha and naaayon siya na siguro kapag medyo mas mas may knowledge siya or mas pinapractice niya na yung tech. So kahit mas babawasan yung kanyang makukuha versus dun sa mga magsa-start pa lang saka yung talagang mas matutulungan ng program. Okay. Yun. So yung kaninang sa review, I think sana kaya nyo rin siyang ma-contextualize in terms of extension planning. So yung extension is hindi lang basta-basta. Okay. Question 17, so monitoring and evaluation of AgX programs. Which of the following best distinguishes monitoring from evaluation? A, monitoring is conducted after the project ends while evaluation happens continuously. B, monitoring focuses on systematic data collection during implementation, while evaluation examines the effectiveness of methods and tools used. C, monitoring is only qualitative while evaluation is purely quantitative. And D, monitoring identifies causality while evaluation only measures inputs. Yan. Hindi mo yan, tapos na tayo. Thank you for being strong. Being strong, di ba? Itong 50 plus na ETH. Okay. Okay, so ang sagot po ay B. So nagfo-focus yung monitoring sa systematic data collection during implementation. So minomonitor mo. Then yung evaluation, usually conducted lang talaga siya after. Though pwede siya while during din. Pero basically, ang main na ginagawa ng evaluation ay ina-examine yung effectiveness nga ng methods and tools. So ito yung best answer. So monitoring is a continuing function that uses systematic collection of data on specified indicators. Continuing, so hindi lang siya one time, big time. Ginagawa siya throughout the implementation. And gumagamit ng data or nagko-collect ng data. And merong indicators kung ano ba yung, for example, anong kinokolektan mo ng data? Yield ba? Or yung effect niya sa people, etc. So merong indicators na kinokolektan. Evaluation, check mo yung effectiveness nga ng tools and ng approach, ng methods, ng extension program to bring change. So they are complementary with one another. Kailangan mo yung monitoring kasi technically yung nagko-collect ng data mo para makapag-evaluate ka kung effective ba. And walang kwenta naman yung monitoring if walang evaluation. So good monitoring is a precondition for good evaluations. Kaya dapat maganda yung data mo and maganda rin yung evaluation method mo para may sense yung data mo. Okay, so criteria in monitoring and evaluation, RICE. So relevance, impact, coherence, effectiveness, efficiency, and sustainability. So ginagamit lang na, for example, relevance. Na-address mo talaga yung needs ng program na to. Parang gano'n, tingnan niya kung gaano siya ka-relevant sa community na to. Impact, meron mo siyang positive or negative impact or change na nagawa dun sa technology, dun sa extension na to. Coherence, yung actions mo talaga na ginagawa sa program, yung nagli-lead ng results. Parang kinakailangan mo talaga yung actions na to for the results. Effectiveness, na-achieve ba natin yung goal or objective ng extension program. Efficiency, ginagamit pa natin na maayos yung mga resources natin para dun sa extension program. Like halimbawa, tamang tao, tamang gamit ng tao, ng budget, etc., ng oras. So, sustainability, long-lasting ba yung effect natin or one-time off lang? As much as possible, dapat long-lasting para worth it talaga yung monitoring and evaluation, pati yung mismong extension program. So 18, which of the following evaluation models is most appropriate when extension evaluators want to understand program outcomes without being influenced by its stated objectives? So A, attainment of objectives, B, goal-free, C, management decision, or D, expert. Last 3 questions. Okay, so sagot po is goal-free evaluation model. If may tanong na pala kayo dyan outside this questions or kung ano man, basta related sa boards or anything, feel free to leave na lang din sa comments or sa chat pala. Mas sa chat ako nakatingin para at least masabihin mo sasagot or habang ongoing. So goal-free evaluation model siya kasi yung model na appropriate daw given na yung evaluators gusto nilang maintindihan yung outcomes ng hindi na-impluwensyahan ng objective. So, ibig sabihin nito, kasi sa goal-free, hindi nalalaman ng evaluators yung objectives. Tumatingin lang siya dun sa mismong naging resulta na or kung ano yung na-observe niya. So, kumbaga, hindi siya nagkakaroon ng bias dun sa objectives kasi hindi niya alam in the first place. So, halimbawa, kapag yung evaluators nakuha din nilang results, yung sumasagot or akma din sa objectives, edi talaga makikita mong effective yung extension program. Attainment of objectives, natingin nga if yung mismong nangyari ay akma sa goals or na-achieve ba yung goals given nung naging realidad or naging outcome. Management decision, Basically, ginagamit to kapag yung results dapat makahelp sa management if itutuloy nila or i-scale nila yung project or ititigil na nila yung extension program. So, kumbaga, yung evaluation nakalin towards helping the management decide on what to do next with the extension activity. Expert judgment, kumukuha ng external kaya third-party evaluator na expert sa certain practice na yon or certain technology na yon. Tapos, base sa alam niya or base sa standards na meron siyang fina-follow, dun na nagde-decide ng evaluation. Participatory evaluation, kinukuha mo or ini-involve mo lang din yung tao with regards to evaluating yung extension program. Experimental, tinetest mo yung hypothesis talaga if attributable sa program yung nangyaring effect. So, halimbawa, nakita ng program na effective yung fertilizer talaga kasi tumaas yung yield ng gantong percentage. Pag experimental yung evaluation to validate that further, mag-run talaga sila ng experiment farms ulit or experiment trials na kumbaga, uulitin nila yung condition tapos i-ensure nila as much as possible same yung environmental conditions sa two different locations tapos gagamitin yung fertilizer para mas makita kung attributable ba sa program or baka nung nag-testing lang pala sa isang lugar pangit pala yung sunlight setup ganun. Tapos sa kabila maganda kaya maganda. So test talaga if attributable dun sa program, sa extension program. The naturalistic dito kumukuha pupunta mismo dun sa farm community tapos nag-observe siya, kumukuha siya ng perspective, nag-interview, observation, kumukuha ng document, etc. Tapos, kumbaga in a natural environment and given different perspective yung approach niya or atake niya in monitoring saka evaluation. So, depende to sa mismong objective sa kung ano yung napiling approach. Yun. So, yung methods natin, first, document analysis. Ito, titignan mo isa-isa yung mga documents na involving mga research data, collection data, para maka-guide sa monitoring and evaluation. Observations, nakikita, interviews, surveys, field visits and tours, documentation of farmer demonstration, village drama and role plays. Minsan, merong gantong form of monitoring and evaluation na nag-role play yung stakeholders kung ano yung tingin nila sa isang technology or ano yung naging parang kumbaga, mapapakita nun yung attitude nila sa yung impact sa kanila ng technology kapag ni-roleplay nila or nagkaroon ng village drama. And then maps, ayun, a source of info din. And then case studies. Okay. So, yan yung iba't ibang methods and hindi naman necessarily itong siyam lang. So, adult teaching and learning, last two questions. So, which statement correctly differentiates pedagogical from andragogical learning? So, A, pedagogy focuses on immediate problem solving, while andragogy is subject-based. B, andragogy depends on external motivation, while pedagogy depends on intrinsic goals. C, pedagogy is teacher-directed, while andragogy is learner-centered and experience-based, while D, pedagogy values self-evaluation, while andragogy relies on instructor evaluation. Okay. So, ang sagot is pedagogy is teacher-directed while andragogy is learner-centered and experience-based. Ito lang yung tama both sa choices. So, i-differentiate na lang natin. Pag pedagogy, it involves teaching children while andragogy, facilitating adult learning. Okay? And then sa pedagogy, ang accountable for all ay yung teacher kasi nga siya yung nagtuturo. And basically, hindi pa naman ganun capacitated ang mga bata to be accountable for their learning. Pero dito sa andragogy, learners are responsible for their own learning. So kaya sa pedagogy, ang teacher ang nag-evaluate ng learning like through scoring, while sa andragogy, merong self-evaluation given that this involves adults and mas gusto ng adults din na maging responsible sa kanilang mga sarili. So pedagogy is externally motivated through scores, ganyan, through praises, compliments, etc. Parang, kumbaga external din, while internally motivated yung ating adults kasi kumbaga gusto talaga nilang mag-improve yung skills nila, gusto nilang mag-improve as a person. Parang ganun. So sa pedagogy, since children, meron silang limited past experience, while sa andragogy, merong great and rich experience na yung mga adults natin given more years in living. So based din sa age and curriculum yung pedagogy, while based on real life roles yung andragogy. So yung usual school natin with children ay pedagogy, in a sense. Okay. So last question. So in evaluating an adult education session, a facilitator observes that participants retained and applied techniques that were demonstrated rather than those only discussed. So what does this reveal best about adult learning? So adults learn best when guided by a structured content-based curriculum, or adults learn best through experiential and problem-centered learning activities. C, adults learn best when autonomy and self-direction are practiced, or D, adults learn best when knowledge is transmitted directly from experts to learners. So last question. Ang dami natin, hindi mo madami, pero pwede na. Nating viewers sa FB, pero hindi sila sumasagot. Pero sige, okay na. Check ko lang. Okay. Ayan, so ang answer po is B. So they learn best through experiential and problem-centered learning activities. So dito kasi hin-highlight na ito naman mas i-internalize lang natin yung phrasing ng tanong. So sabi, nag-learn daw yung adults nung in-apply nila yung techniques mismo kaysa, or I mean, nung dinemonstrate mismo yung tinuturo sa kanila versus diniscuss lang. So, I mean, pinakita pala. Ano ba? Pinakita sa kanila. Tama ba? May nasabi, sabog na. Kaya sabihin, na-experience din talaga nila and kumbaga na-demo sa kanila. So, hindi naman to nagpakita ng content-based curriculum. Hindi rin to nagpakita ng principle of autonomy and self-direction. So, and then yung fourth din. So, pinaka-na-highlight is yung fact na pinaka-effective yung i-demonstrate mo sa kanila versus i-discuss mo lang sa kanila. Okay. Parang yun yung best answer, kumbaga. Okay, so sa adult learning, basta they are more self-directed and autonomous. Gusto nila, mas nasusunod sila and, kumbaga, accountable na sila for themselves. So, kung ano nang gusto nilang direksyon sa buhay ng learning, ganyan. So, mas nag-utilize sila ng knowledge and life experience. Meron silang goal dapat na, kumbaga, pag nakita nila na akma to sa goal nila sa buhay. So, mas magpa-practice sila, mas matututo sila, mas magiging engaged sila sa extension program. And then, pagkita nilang relevant talaga, or like, for example, kailangan talaga nila to, or kita nilang effective talaga. So, mas matututo din sila. Highlights practicality. Parang yun. And encourages collaboration with educator versus kapag sa children, right? So, adults, mas kaya nga dito, famously siya, facilitation, like yung extension worker, hindi naman necessarily na nagtuturo lang siya or parang one-way feedback. Mas common yung two-way feedback kapag adult yung learning kasi magpa-provide talaga din sila ng knowledge back and natututo tayo sa isa't isa. Okay, so ayun po ang ating 20 questions, so 8:59. Diba? Sakto tayo. So thank you so much to everyone who listened, and kung meron pa kayong gustong ihabol na tanong before we end, pwede naman. So thank you so much for listening. Pasensya na ulit na medyo may ubol tayo ng end pause. Pero yun, pag may tanong kayo, pwede rin kayo mag-message sa akin sa FB or email nyo. Ayun lang naman on my end. And I think wala naman ako nabasang questions. Pero yun, pag may tanong pa kayo, please let me know para makapag-end din tayo. Okay, so sana marami din tayong natutunan tonight. Okay.
Hello? Ay, sorry po. Hello, may questions po ba ang ating participants?